Okay, welcome everybody. I am Nathan Hansen. I am the Public Relations Coordinator at Golden Shovel Agency, and we are excited to have you all here for today's Keeping Up Is Not Enough webinar, looking at the trends in economic development websites. We have Aaron Brossois, the CEO and founding member of Golden Shovel Agency, and Elisa Sklar of Sklar Consulting, and I will let them take it over from here. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. We will try to address them at the end if we have time.
Sounds good. Thanks, Nathan, and welcome again, Elisa. We were just doing the math before getting started here, and we determined it is our 11th year
11 years.
presenting around this topic together.
Yeah, that's amazing how the time flies. We're going to have to go back at some point and look at our first trends and compare them, but things have really changed, haven't they?
Yeah, 11 years ago it was like horses, I think, and
VHS tapes, I
yep,
think.
pull.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, fantastic. I think the biggest thing this year is that AI is getting integrated into just about everything. It seems, and so, it seems a lot. It keeps instead of having a section on it, it sort of got dispersed throughout the whole presentation.
Yeah, it's really fun to see how these things change and so quickly, right? Like even as we start getting up to date on the tools, I see an update and something new has changed or some new tool has different features. This will be really fun to go through this.
All right, well, let's get started. You can kick it off.
Excellent. Okay, so we are going to have a fairly fast-paced coverage here of looking at economic development marketing in an AI era. We're going to be looking at websites, but we're going to also be taking into account marketing in general, because it's really hard to kind of separate out websites. It's really part of the total flow when it comes to marketing communications. We will have some questions at the end, so save your questions. You can see there is a Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to put them in there. You will get a link to this afterwards and a link to the slide deck, so you'll be able to review at your convenience. So some things that, as we were putting this together, it really occurred to us that users have gotten much more sophisticated, and their expectations of what they're going to be able to get from you guys as economic development professionals is different. We know that it's really changed how you can show up in searches, how your community can be found. It changes both the speed of the response that your shareholders and stakeholders and site selectors expect of you, but also the quality and detail of the material that they want to see. We know that for you guys, this can be really overwhelming. There's so much data out there. How do we make sense of it and produce stuff that is meaningful and engaging and effective? And what does it mean if you're a small team, if you're a team of one wearing a lot of hats, or even a bigger team where people are managing different kinds of things? We really want to think about that. And also always to think about your brand. Credible, trustworthy, secure, but also innovative and up to date. So this is what we're going to look at. And I'm going to pass this over to you, Aaron, to teach us a little bit about AI engines and what that means for websites.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I would say that, first and foremost, we put this at number one because so many of the questions being answered are now being answered through AI engines. And I think that raises a lot of questions about how does the website play a role in that. And first thing I want to talk about here is how people search for things has really changed. I mean, back when it was just, say, Google, you do your query, you get your results, and then you click on, hopefully you show up on the top first page and somewhere in the top 10 listings, and you click on it and go to the website. And that's what we've been focusing on for the last 15 years, is making sure those economic development organizations are found. But today with the AI-powered search and the LLMs, it's a little bit different. You run your query, it goes, finds the information, synthesizes it, decides what it's going to respond on its own, and then gives you the answer based on that. So that's a pretty significant shift because it seemingly takes away some of the control of how the information is presented from the economic development organization. Plus, if you don't have the right information on your site, AI will go find it somewhere else and come back and bring it. So this changes a little bit how the websites work. You can see a little bit. This is already, you can see in like the search results, certainly with Google, that it'll still put AI right at the top even before you even get to the links. So the links themselves don't carry quite the same amount of weight down below that they used to. And so what we've had to do is really rethink how we measure everything, because suddenly how much does organic traffic mean, or how many times people click on an ad, or these things have changed now. Instead of organic traffic, it's AI visibility score. Instead of like the keyword rankings, it's how often your citation frequency inside the AI engines, and making sure that suddenly the websites themselves don't quite have the same, they don't have the same kind of traffic. We're already seeing from the websites we've been making that fewer pages are visited by people, but way more pages are being visited by AI, and that the bounce rate has been higher at 67.8% compared to 63% from search visitors. But the interesting thing is that the AI platforms have a very high conversion rate compared to just an organic search. Like somebody clicking on you showing up in AI and going to your website is starting to have more increase than just clicking through normal search. And so what we've determined is that AI is making the websites more important than ever. And the reason is because since AI has to go to an authority to find the information that it wants to present to the person, naturally it's going to look for the economic development organization when the economic development questions are asked. What we've realized is that the websites themselves still control the narrative of what the AI is going to bring and share with the potential prospect or person putting in the query. However, it's changed a variety of ways of how we set up and use the websites in order to generate that traffic and to make sure that there's still some control from the economic development organization. The very first one is just how we rate the content, period. Like one of the things in the last couple of years we've done a lot of is putting in like frequently asked questions into economic development websites. In the past, that wasn't a thing. It really wasn't a section unless it was on a specific program or something of that sort. You didn't go to an economic development site and be like, look for an FAQ page to determine if your business, how to move your business there, so to say. However, now, because of the nature of how people type into AI, it loves frequently asked questions. And so we've been putting in those types of content into the economic development sites because it's more appropriate for AI. It likes that, it'll find it, and it'll bring back the responses to the queries being asked. We've also found that to be first and to be found and to be considered the authority on it from an AI bot, you have to have really quality content. There's no real way around it. Unlike Google, where it used to have some tricks you could do to get found or to get your algorithm up, those days are passing faster and faster and faster. And now it comes down to quality. And that quality is usually evaluated by how many other people are linking and are trusting you as a referred source in order to become one of the top players. And we'll talk a little more about some of those strategies as we go along. The other thing we've learned is you have to code the websites differently. You have to make your website, there's coding like JSON code or text.llms that say, hey, welcome AI bots. You have found the right place. Please go to this content. You'll find that it's all right there for you to be able to present to whatever question you need answered. And that's made a big impact on how it responds and getting noticed by these bots. Just a couple of the things that we've been using AI inside our websites include everything from generating SEO, this particular tool that's inside our economic gateway system. We've even been able to use, in some cases, this latest product. We've only launched this at the beginning of last year, but we've been using AI to generate content for our Impact Local product, which is a kind of like it's an economic gateway light, and it allows us to make sites that are more available to rural communities and to smaller communities that have smaller budgets. And so we've been able to use AI to really help with streamlining that. I'll pass it over to you for value proposition.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Aaron. So before we dive into, the kind of cool new innovative things that have to do with AI, we do have to take a step backwards and think a little bit about brass tacks, about foundations. And one of the first things that we know is helping you understand for your community what it is that you're actually selling. Not all communities are different, not all locations are different. You have your own value proposition, and we really want to help people make sense of that as much as possible. And a value proposition is really about understanding what your why is. Why would someone choose you? Why should someone choose you as a location for their business or when it comes to workforce attraction? Now, a value proposition means going back into your strat plan. If you have a strategic plan, it means looking at the data that you've got, public data, private data, locally collected data, a concise explanation that helps you understand all of the different benefits that your region could provide to investors and businesses. So it isn't just who you are and where you are, what you do differently, but it's the heart of what you offer. And your value proposition, understanding it really well, is so critical because you need to start coding, using this in the queries that you are feeding to the AI tools and other tools as you go about the marketing and the sharing your website and making sure that your content is really good. And so that is really, really critical. That value proposition has to be front and center. It is literally your foundation. Anytime you are looking at your value prop, and you might think you know it, but you need to revisit it all the time because new businesses are opening, new subsectors are growing, things may be changing related to your infrastructure or available incentives. So you really want to understand what those things are, the what, why, and the how. And then you need to think about how are we going to tell those stories in a way that is engaging, that has data linked to it, that they're going to remember and resonate, and it's going to come top of mind when it comes time to make those location decisions, those long lists and short lists. So that is really critical. And when I work with clients, often what I do is spend a bit of time helping them understand the value prop and then thinking about the specific messages. Usually there's at least three that we start thinking about. And when you get this slide deck afterwards, you can go over to the Reach Central Coast example. They do a really good job on their homepage. There's lots of great examples of these things on different websites. How do those three brand messages, those pillars, how do they get told? And then below them, you'll see there's another three things. So what are the proof points for each of those brand pillars? So for example, if it's connected, the three proof points, the stories they're going to tell are around a central location, around stress-free transportation, around being spacious with room to breathe. So those are examples of how we put all this together. And this is really just a best practices foundation. I got an example over here from the Invest in Canada website. This is investment attraction for all of Canada. And you can see this is their homepage. This is what you see at the top, who we are, why would you choose Canada, and then going down to the benefits of FDI. It has to be front and center. So it's a good example of what that can actually look like for you.
Yeah,
I'll pass it to you.
I just threw a couple other examples in. I mean, I can't speak enough to what you're saying. The more concise, I think the word was, the more concise you are in what your proposition is, the more interesting you're going to be to the prospects, and the more likely you're going to be able to reach the people that you want. Here's just a couple of Broken Arrow Economic Development Corporation. I have a couple examples in here, but named the most livable small city in America. Wonderful site, and they really put a lot of quality work into their value proposition. On a larger scale, we have the state of Connecticut. They really push just, and this website is incredibly deep. We were very excited. We won a IEDC Gold Award this last year in 2025 for this website. It goes really deep into the why. And one of the things on the business attraction side of things is really being specific about the areas that you're going to target and the industries that you're going to go after, and making the case for that. Having the value proposition is oftentimes supported by the fact that you have a lot of the same types of industry or types of a good solid cluster of groups that can work together, and that's where they're really pushing that forward. Then one more, make it in McMinn County. This is in Tennessee. To your point, where I was talking about the center of things or the location piece, this is what they really were pushing hard on their site. We're in the center of all national distribution routes. And so, great way to get your value proposition, put it out front and forward. What you don't want to do is say, we're the right fit for everyone. Any business will thrive here. That's a quick way to get into nothing for your investment and time in economic development.
So let's jump from here now into the AI tools. We understand our why, right? We've been able to define that. We know where the data is, and we want to be able to start telling those stories. So let's think about some AI tools. And to start telling this story, there was one product that really I find very exciting, just launched. And what this is really going to do, we'll take a look at it over here, is help you deal with the capacity bottleneck. Whether you are a one-person team or many people on a bigger team, we know that you have many people demanding your attention. They want reports and memos and briefs for council and press releases and newsletter content and webinar content and collateral for trade missions. I could keep going on. There's so many things. But time and resources limit capacity. You need to be responsive. There's more and more demands, but you lack the staff and the resources to manage that. So the next thing that we really need to think about is how we actually go in and provide that data, what that looks like. So that means that you need to start thinking about this. And a survey last year, a company called Local Intel that I've been doing some work with, when they asked economic developers, 95% of them recognized that good data-informed content was critical. They said more than half of them said they're sharing this content weekly or daily, but 64% of them said they struggle to find trustworthy data to do their work. And they say that data factors into almost half of the work they're trying to do. So, where do you get that if you're struggling to manage all these things? And one of the things that they put together that really just launched right now is a new AI-driven content engine. It is a standalone content engine. And I noticed one of the questions that got asked already was, well, there's so much out there. How do we use AI, but control in some meaningful way the data it can draw from? And what I think is really interesting is that local intel actually does that. It feeds the specific data set that the AI algorithm is allowed to use, restricts it to all the noise everywhere else, and says, okay, this is regularly updated. It is a closed system. It is trustworthy. This is data customized to your specific location. And what it will do then is use this data to create a huge gallery of branded, editable reports, stories, talking points, data visualizations, and embeddable widgets. And that's really a fascinating thing to look at. So here's one screenshot here. Norfolk County, Ontario was one of the first clients to start working with this. And this is just an example of the gallery of their stories. All of these use the data that Local Intel has programmed for the county. There's visualizations for each one of them. And you can pull that out at a moment's notice for things that are absolutely ready to use, but also really importantly that are editable, because you always want AI content to be human reviewed, right? Like you always want to be checking to make sure that that's there. So here's an example of one of the stories that they pulled out. And it's really kind of important. They were saying that within the first day that they had the tool at their disposal, someone asked the director a question about commute patterns. And he was like, wait, there's actually a story ready to go in there. So he went into the gallery, pulled this out. It's got the snapshot in the upper right-hand side. It's tagged at the top so you know what it's about. Talking points. So if your mayor wants you to, feed them some talking points, that's ready to go. And the story is actually there. You can download it into Word and you can work with it. And there are hundreds and hundreds of stories for something like this. So this is a huge savings. It really addresses that capacity bottleneck. And here's an example. They used the story on commute times on their website, went out in their newsletter, like within days of actually getting access to the tool. So really kind of a fascinating look at how those things can play into what actually is your workload as an economic developer. It's the first really meaningful example of specific AI tool created specifically for economic development. It's like having Canva for economic development. It was like a step back now because we're going to talk about tools more in general, and we're going to more generally, and we're going to talk a little bit about some best practices for using them. So generative AI is kind of what we just showed you. That's where it generates text, images, video, audio. We're going to show you some of these great tools. Predictive AI is, let's say you're using Active Campaign to do your email campaigns, or HubSpot, or Salesforce. Those will help predict based on patterns. They might tell you site selectors open, most of them open emails and click through on links if you sent them at 9:18 on a Tuesday morning. I just made that up. Don't write that down. That's just an example of what it might tell you in terms of predictive AI. It might look at trends and all kinds of things either on your data or on other kinds of data that you choose to feed into it. And this is an infographic. I wrote this brief up, then I uploaded it into a tool that Erin's going to talk about in a moment called Notebook LM. I gave it a couple of cues, and it generated in a moment this infographic that I could use just to talk about what that means. So as you start using these really amazing tools, some things you want to think about: prioritizing security and data compliance. What are you uploading to an AI tool? What is confidential? What are you not allowed? Those are important questions to ask. Anytime you share something that is created by AI, you should be upfront by it. I like to have, AI generated and human reviewed. For example, you might use it to start with things, but not necessarily replacing the humans like you who are on staff, who you are the experts on your community. You have the relationships, you have the history and the judgment. These are tools that you can use. The other thing you really want to think about, I'll show you an example in a moment, is tailoring it to your persona. Is this going out to your small business owners, or is this going out to your site selectors, or is this going out to elected officials? Those will be very different kinds of audiences. And then targeting your own voice, and I'll show you an example of that in a moment. And then, of course, the last thing you must always remember is really go back and verify, edit. There should always be someone on your team who signs off on anything that has been created by AI that is going to be used. An example of, don't worry about reading this tiny text, but the top arrow is showing you an example of personalization. This is something I happen to like, perplexity.ai, partly because it gives me the links for all of the things that it cites. So I'm starting to think about my voice and my background and how it's going to structure the language of the outputs. And then at the bottom arrow, it's, what I don't want it to be sycophantic. I don't want it to flatter me. I want it to act as a strategic advisor. I want it to challenge thinking. So responding with clarity and those kinds of prompts I think are really important so that you start to get more meaningful outputs, I think is really kind of a critical thing. A few prompt examples that I just want to leave you with, because we often start very simple, like generate a list of LinkedIn posts. Well, take a look at some of these and think about how you might be able to use them to get stuff that is a little bit more relevant to the work that you're doing. So the first one is fill in the gap here, act as my strategic advisor, act as my social media expert, write a LinkedIn post about whatever it is. Explain what the goal is. I want to recruit people to a workshop or register them for a webinar or get them to sign up for this training workshop. Another example of a prompt here is giving it a text that you've written or that someone else has written and ask it to analyze it in specific ways and focus on specific things. And then ask it to rewrite in different ways so you can go back and look at it and consider what are some of the pieces from this that you might be able to borrow. You're using social media, you have to come up with content all the time. Maybe these were 5 LinkedIn posts that did really well. You got tons of impressions for them. So what if you pasted them in and asked it to take a look at why? Why did those work so well? And then come up with new examples or hook triggers that you can use that would be just as effective for future posts. A fourth example here is explain how, this particular subsector or industry sector is meaningful these days. Maybe you're doing a brief to someone in that sector and ask for different explanations. One that is quite simple that you could use with, let's say, high school students or fifth grade students. Maybe a version that you would use with a tech CEO, and maybe another version that you might use with an interested prospect. And ask it to help brief you on how you can talk about an industry sector that you're still learning about. So it's teaching you in that moment to do what you need to do more effectively. This one I really like. Let's say you've had a successful RFP response and you know that it's worked. Ask the tool to analyze it and identify what worked, structure, pacing, tone, transitions, CTA, summarize them to create a reusable style guide, and then apply that style guide to rewrite a text that you're working on for a new response. So lots of more sophisticated ways to use these tools than just, generate a response to this RFP. I think those could be far more effective for you. Oh, you're muted, Aaron.
That's probably good. No, to your point about the prompts, some of the master prompts we've created for example, I mentioned the local impact sites earlier. Some of these prompts are a page and a half long. Like you can keep adding to them and say, okay, next time, make sure this happens, make sure this happens. It still has to be concise and have a specific direction, but as you get back and get feedback back, you can keep improving them and improving them and reusing those as they're necessary. For some parts you can reuse, and then some parts you customize for what you're building. Just to support all of this, I wanted to show a quick. I'm a huge fan of Notebook LM, and Gemini just recently just came out with a new version in January. Gemini and Notebook LM are both controlled by Google. Our company is fully invested into Gemini as our platform, and the reason is because we were already all part of the Google workforce or work product. So we're using Gmail and Google Docs and all of those, the calendar. With ChatGPT and with Claude, those are both very interesting and very powerful LLMs without question. We had concerns about training data. There's a lot of things that happen in economic development that are sensitive, and we don't necessarily want them out in the world. And so one thing that was really, really great about both Gemini and Notebook LM is that if you connect it into the Google system, it's already respects all of the all the different levels in there, making sure that if someone doesn't have permissions for some type of document, that someone else can't just go into Notebook LM and suddenly pull that information out of your Google Docs. And it also doesn't train anything on it. So that way you can actually load it up with information that's a little more sensitive so you can do more work. This is, for example, let's say you made an entire notebook all around a single prospect, so that then you could use that to generate like some of the things that Elisa was talking about right here. I'll give you a quick view of this. This is an example of one. I just took a screenshot. I uploaded one source. You can see over on the left side, all I put in there was a Golden Shovel Agency white paper that we had made on solving workforce shortages. You can upload up to 50 different sources. You can search for those sources right there. What's cool, or you can even find them right out of your Google Docs and link them in there. But once it's over on the sources, all of the AI LLM is only going to be looking at those sources. It's not going to go out and find something from a nearby town or something that someone posted on Twitter, or X, I should say. So in this case, I just put in a single document, and over on the right side, in the middle, I can type and ask it questions, and it'll reference it and give me feedback. On the right side, there's a studio, which allows me to do a variety of different things. Everything from making a podcast, which I've shared in the past on these presentations, where it actually has two people talking about, just like a radio podcast, on all the information that was inside the documents that you had. You can do mind maps, you can make videos and reports. I just threw a couple in here. Here's a giant infographic that came right out of that book. It's kind of like Lisa had just shown. Here's a slide from an entire slide deck. So they can start taking that. I could convert it. It was I think a 70-page white paper. And suddenly here's a slide presentation you could give on that exact topic. So really cool ways to synthesize and take in the information. Some people just don't have time to read a 70-page paper, period. And they want to instead listen to it in their car. Or they want to be able to make these presentations for a specific client that's customized. You can do that safely in Notebook LM. We put a little tool book together. You can check that out. This came out in October, I believe, 2025. So it's got a bunch of the tips and a bunch of the tools inside of there. So please feel free to check out our Research Learning Center. This is one of many. All right, how about over to you?
Thanks, Aaron. So, as we look at what do we do with these amazing tools? I mean, Notebook LM is a remarkable tool. I share Aaron's enthusiasm for it. There's all kinds of cool stuff you can do, and you can also think about, you know, customizing some of the queries, the look and the feel of it. Let's talk about how to use this effectively because the AI tool has its own, uses its own algorithm for creating these things, but you ultimately are the expert on your community and your sites, your workforce, your subsectors. So let's think about framing those into a storytelling format. We know that the human brain is absolutely hardwired for narratives. We've been telling stories around, fireplaces for millennia. That's how we think. And we know from the research that when things are told in a story format, they're good for engagement. We're more likely to understand them well. They're more likely to resonate so that they stay with us, and we're more likely to remember them afterwards. So, as you're putting your materials together, that's something to think about. These slides, incidentally, were created with the help of Notebook LM. So I had the brief written up, and I asked it to help generate some visuals. So we know that stories are remembered 22 times more effectively than just giving people facts. So how do we tell that? How do we make that important about your community and about the sectors that are there? We also know that when we're telling stories, we can use emotion in different kinds of ways. It isn't just about square footage and tax codes, not that those aren't like absolutely fascinating. We need to start thinking about how to tie them into people, into businesses, into stories that people are more likely to remember so that those facts are actually going to resonate with people afterwards. So that is really critical. And you might say to yourself, well, how do I do that in economic development? I still need to talk about zoning. So humanizing the location. I'm a big fan of it bringing the people in, the workers, the entrepreneurs, um, the investors, the people who are running these organizations, the elected officials, the head of the Chamber of Commerce, the head of the Realtors Association. So the living community, I think, is really important, and it's also more authentic. So even as we're talking more about tools like AI, which are basically computer algorithms, it's still really about people. It's about people like you who have that judgment to be able to figure out which of the stories and how we use these stories. But it's also about the people and the stories in your community as well that you're going to be able to tell. So it may seem like it's a bit of a contradiction here, but I actually think these things are more important than ever, which I guess is good news. Third-party validation, that's a really big thing. So having quotes, testimonials from people who actually, this is just an example of one. This is made up. I don't even know that this is a real person that you're seeing in
There's
the
no third
picture.
party validation on this story.
It's third party. Maybe that's a fourth party. I'm not sure. But it's an example of someone that could be, probably should be a real person in your community. Those are things that really connect with people. So I do encourage you to make sure they are actual human beings when you create them. I think that's important. Thinking about values, community values are really important. We understand that although there may not be a checkbox on the decision matrix for a site selector, values nevertheless plays a big part in how companies choose locations. And so thinking about that alignment means you can tell stories about those values that come through in different kinds of ways. Whether it was innovation or diversity or community development, those are really great stories that you can share that you're able to put out there in different kinds of ways.
Yeah, I threw in just a couple examples of what to do with those stories once they're made. And certainly one of the things is making sure that they're on the websites. Because so much, and we'll touch on this in the next upcoming section here, but so much of what attracts people to a website and ultimately to a community is going to be stories that are out there and told. And so this is a great place to put all of the stories so that when people get there, there's more to share and a more well-rounded storytelling. And also sometimes the stories are actually done using some of the data itself. And I used like one East Kentucky when this site had first launched, they had 10,000 available workers because of the mining in eastern Kentucky. It was a 10-county region, and so they needed a new cluster, a business cluster to focus on, and they chose aerospace. But the issue at the time was there weren't any aerospace companies in there, but they were able to run the data and determine that within a couple hour radius, there were an awful lot of aerospace companies that they were right actually in the center of. And they were able to use this graphic to make these sections of the website to show that they were actually in the middle of a cluster. And that was very successful for attracting new types of aircraft manufacturing companies to the region. And so naturally, that will get us into lead generation. I would say, arguably, lead generation is still at the, should be one of the top uses of a website. I mean, what are we doing all of the marketing for? We're trying to get people interested and we're trying to get them hooked in. And still to this day, and this has been around now for a little while, but the inbound marketing is really, really key to lead generation. That's getting people to come visit, catching them with a great story. They check out your site and they see more, but then after that, it's about knowing who they are so you can continue to nurture what they're interested in. You can give them more of what they're already looking for. As we know in economic development, few decisions happen fast. And so you have to keep those relationships going over time. And until you get an opportunity to meet somebody in person, that can be done by nurturing with webinars and white papers and other types of information that might be down the same interest that they had when they first visited your site. And ultimately, you want to connect with them and have them come visit your community. And so we do this fishing, if you will. All the different tools all comes back to the website. And so the website is very much the economic development office of organizations, much more than the physical ones, because so much of the decision making happens before anybody ever shows up. And that's whether it's types of social media, e-newsletters are still incredibly popular and very effective. There's lots of different like white papers, articles. We'll talk a little bit about education. We made that a whole section today. And doing podcasts and webinars. This is all great stuff. It tells the stories, it tells them over and over and over again so that they get hooked back and ultimately come to the site where you can keep track of who's coming to visit. And here's just some examples of different types of ads we launched. It can be in all sorts of different areas and types of sites, bringing everybody back to the website. When it comes to the AI and people doing questions there, pretty much all of them, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, they'll give you the sources that'll go back to. You can see where they're going, that they're getting the information from. And that's how we can validate whether or not the websites are getting the story to the AI. And by the way, for as far as Lisa mentioned earlier, making sure that things are correct, asking sources from AI is absolutely critical because you need to know where they're getting their data from. It still occasionally makes stuff up. It's getting better. It is absolutely getting better than it used to be. There's fewer seven-fingered people. There's fewer made-up facts, but it still needs people with expertise to move it forward.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And it's something to think about as you're creating this content is that you have, always the website, but there is a continuous need for content. I know that one of the things we see, AI algorithms are always looking at date, how fresh your content is, and they will really prioritize things that are dated within the last year or even the last quarter of the last year or even the last month, in 2026. That's really something that they're looking for. So having this continuous need for content marketing means understanding which marketing is evergreen or still fresh that you can update. Sometimes you don't need to create something entirely new. Go back into it and update it with new figures or examples of new, things that are happening in a subsector, for example. So always having that out there is important. And then you become kind of thought leaders. You can find the experts within your area that are going to help you be able to do that. It is really important. Profile your business owners, your workers, and the folks from your community who can help you create that content without you having to do that all the time. The other thing that you really want to think about is ways to expand the database, the people out there who are listening to you, who are subscribed to your e-newsletter list. I agree with Erin. I'm a huge fan of e-newsletters. We always think of email and e-newsletters as old school, but that stuff's really important. And each e-newsletter that you put out there becomes new content that is freshly dated, that is up there on your website as well. And that helps you with that SEO and visibility. So you can take a video, for example, and then use something like Opus Clips to make small little chunks, 30-second, 1-minute videos with captions that then go out on LinkedIn as posts to bring people back to your website to see the larger piece. So lots of fun things that you can do to play around with them, and continue to put those. These are just like some examples of things that I've done. Continue to put those things out there that they continue to get information and impressions from people. We often forget that people don't read everything on your, they don't read your website like a novel from start to finish, right? They don't read even all your blogs and your content you're putting out there. So taking things, reviving it, refreshing it, and putting it out there and mixed in different ways helps you leverage all the effort that you put that into.
Yep. And then from there, of course, we have to track them. So getting into the tools, I think like reverse IP, lead forensics is one that Golden Shovel uses a lot. Whatever your CRM is, whether it's HubSpot or Salesforce, you got to make sure the stuff is all integrated because that's how you know who's coming to visit. And otherwise, there's no real easy way to nurture them. If you see somebody, a company, for example, that maybe caught on to one of the target industry stories you were telling, you want to know that they're coming, what they're looking at, so that when you're at an industry show, you can go visit with them and set those meetings up. Here's just a quick screen of a variety of tools that we use a lot at Golden Shovel that are all part of that the phishing side of things and the lead nurturing side of things to make sure that once people come, that they're not just lost forever, but they stay inside the pool. And that leads to education. And just, I think this is a perfect segue to what Lisa was saying. And I'll just let you start it off.
Well, look, I'm a big believer that the best marketing in the field that we're in is really about education. We have to take complex things like industry sectors or workforce trends, and we need to make them interesting, engaging, accessible, and memorable to people. And the best way to do that is to think about how teachers and educators have been, if someone ever caught your attention about cellular biology or algebra or French grammar, they didn't necessarily just do it because the information was natively, organically interesting. They took that and made it meaningful to you. So this is really an important way to think about, and it is something that AI tools can really help you do. Like in the examples we showed you with Notebook LM, and there are many other tools. You have to think beyond just the Chat GPT and Copilot and Perplexity and Claude. I mean, those are great too. But a lot of other tools out there will use an AI element with a closed system in it so that you can make sure what you're doing is remains authoritative. So helping people understand things, mapping out the businesses, telling the specific stories of anchor companies, coming up with case studies about that. That is really a critical way to continue doing the marketing element, but doing it in a way that is trustworthy. And I just noticed there was a really important question in here. How do you keep trust among site selectors, stakeholders? Because it's so easy to create fictitious content. I guess the thing is, as the economic development organization representing your location, you start with a brand that is already trustworthy and authoritative. We have to preserve that, strengthen that at all costs. So we use AI, but we can use it in a way that makes us more effective and efficient, boost our capacity, but we're always checking it. And that is why there may be people out there saying things that are untrue, but at the end of the day, they're going to come back to you because as the EDO, you become an authoritative voice for what is real. I wouldn't spend so much time negating fictitious or erroneous stories out there. Continue to provide the good quality, rigorous, robust, up-to-date data and stories that you've got. And at the end of the day, that is who is going to turn to you for those kinds of things. I think that's an important thing to think about.
Yep. I would agree. At Golden Shovel, our whole strategy is education. This is our marketing, and this is what it means to build trust. And trust comes at a premium these days. I mean, it really does because there's so
Really
much
good.
uncertainty. And so, and economic developers can use this exact same approach. And it's not just for telling people about your community, it's for the people in your community. And just to be able to get that type of support. I'll give you an example of some of the, like who you even need to talk to. Your local businesses might not even know what the economic development organization programs are, what's even available through them. Sometimes the board members aren't up to speed on the latest economic development trends. They think like it's still how it was, say, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, when things have dramatically changed in 10 to 15 years. And certainly educating new talent and even the current workforce about what jobs are available is important. So I just put a couple in here of some groups that have done some cool things. Sometimes they actually hold an inclusive workforce summit, in this case for Ramsey County, where this was in St. Paul area, Minnesota, where they'd be able to have a live in-person event and bring everybody in and do education on what's going on with their organization and what's important. This was one from Seven Rivers Alliance, Southwest Wisconsin. They did a whole thing on the state of the region and brought everybody in, all of the stakeholders and people from around the area, to learn about what's changing in that region and in the industry. York County Development Corporation, they do podcasts. That's Golden Shovel does podcasts regularly too. This is a great way to tell stories. It's literally people telling stories. And you can just, they're way over 117 now, I believe. But like Lisa said in the beginning, you can just remember the story so much better, and it's great to hear it in people's own voices. So if there are a lot of those white papers on whatever topic, these are the same types of documents you could send to somebody to nurture their relationship with you once you know they're interested in an area. It might be on an industry in your region or educating, once again, board members. We've put out tons of white papers, whether we've done ones on housing, ones on childcare, how to do the AI, like I showed earlier, workforce attraction, goes on and on. Our theories, our approach is educate them. Just tell everybody how we do what we're doing. Tell people what's going on. Share what the best practices are that we're seeing from the people that we're working with. We've got to see 300 different communities trying all sorts of different things. And when some of them are really performing, we can put together a white paper and share it with everybody. So please help yourself to any and all of these. And that gets us into video. There's nothing that tells a story better than video. Does so much, and it still plays a huge role, ironically, both in SEO and in AI also, because AI can go right through a video and see the content on it. SEO is, you get higher up in your rankings based on the search engines when you have video, but most of all, they're impressionable and memorable. And we've done a lot of work in video over the last, 15 years. And here's an example, be in Broken Arrow. I'm just going to show a little bit of this one for time, but you can just hear the authenticity out of the first couple
Why is
people
Broken Arrow
talking.
home? That's a great question. I look at Broken Arrow as a city that has affordability, it has safety, has conveniences. I always thought myself, this would be a perfect place to grow up a family, have a career, and I can really just see myself being here long term.
Broken Arrow truly is one of a kind. I'm not just saying that. I mean, we've been to some wonderful cities, but there's just really nothing that compares to Broken Arrow. There are always festivals. Every holiday, there's some form of celebration. There's never really a weekend that something's not going on.
It's like a little mountain downtown, like that you'd see in like Northern California, but
So I just wanted to show a couple of those because you can just hear the authenticity in the voice, and in seeing someone's face, that's just way more impressive than just talking about it or just reading about it. And so there are a lot of different types of videos can be made. And there's some fun AI tools that you can use for video. I've shared a couple of these in the past, but HeyGen is one where you can actually make a digital avatar of yourself, and then you can type anything and your avatar will actually say that in your voice. Here's a little example of it. I won't show the whole thing because just for time, but I'll give you a little clip.
Talk about AI. I'd be remiss if I didn't include an AI version of myself. Frankly, I think I am better at speaking than the other guy since I don't have any vocal utterances and don't make mistakes. On that note, through HeyGen I can speak in multiple languages, whereas the real Aaron can barely manage with a little German. For example, let us start in English. Thank you all for coming here to learn more about AI. I hope you find it interesting. In German I would say, vielen Dank, dass Sie alle hierher gekommen sind, mehr über KI zu erfahren. Ich hoffe, Sie finden es interessant. Let's try Spanish. Gracias a todos por venir aquí para aprender más sobre IA. Espero que les resulte interesante. Or perhaps Korean. AI에 대해 더 알아보기 위해 여기 와주신 모든 분들께 감사드립니다. 흥미롭게 읽으셨으면 좋겠습니다. Or even Mandarin Chinese. 感谢大家来这里学习更多关于人工智能的知识。希望你们觉得这很有趣。And now we are back to English. I can see some real opportunities with this technology to connect with foreign prospects, make bilingual messaging for your own communities, as well as make quick tutorial videos, and many more. Thanks again, and back to you, Real Aaron.
So that's pretty much insane, but made the avatar of myself sitting right here, and then now I can type in anything in any language, and it even will make the mouth work, and you can same prompts and make it look pretty natural. And interesting way to make videos if you needed, if you're perhaps maybe you're not a really great or a public speaker or don't like to be in front of huge audiences, but still have important messages you need to say from yourself. It's an opportunity for that. And so next on, we only have 3 more. Let's do it. Visualization.
Visualization. So part of telling stories is to show, not just tell. Our brains visualize things instantly when you show them as visuals. And, some people are visual learners. Some people like to hear things. Some people like to read things. I'm a big fan of having things presented in a variety of different ways. But the truth is that long spreadsheets really make our eyes glaze over. Maybe that's just me, but I think for most people that is the case. So having these beautiful charts and graphs, infographics and videos, different ways of telling this, I think is really, really kind of an important thing to do. And it really helps us tell that better. There we go. I'm having trouble clicking over. Okay. So here's an example. This is the local intel tools. These are, they're well known for their beautiful quality of life visualization tools that can be embedded into any website or go into reports and things. I really love the quality of life tool because it starts to tell that stories. In this case, you want to show off the, great outdoors, trails, camping, golf clubs. This is from Brenham in Washington County in Texas. And I think I have an example here from Lindale. So you want to be able to show climate. You've got an amazing climate. This is an opportunity to show what the different seasons look like, when you can come and see the bluebells in bloom and some of the other things that make a community worth living in and investing in. And having these things in a dashboard that is interactive is really useful as well, because it keeps people on your website and it helps them return over and over again. The top tool in this image here just helps break down in a colorful way the industry of employment for the folks that live in a tool. And just underneath it, I have another example. I think I clicked on the wrong thing. In any case, that just tells about logistics, distance from airports, rail, terminals, intermodal ports, and those kinds of things. So showing these things is a really important way of telling those stories and tends to be far more effective.
Absolutely. I love the visual colored boxes. It's certainly great to see that. We've done a bunch of this also just for very specific sites. And so this is a case of a VR video that we had done where this was the field that the site was located on, and we needed to put a image inside of it so people could see what the potential was for that particular site. We've done a lot of different of these in VR. We've also done a lot of this type of visualization through standard video, drone video, and the like. I brought a 1-minute one to show you. This is just one we happened to have done last year. example of that. It's pretty cool. You can use we used a combination of Google Earth to shoot some of that, and 3D modeling and drone footage, just to put all that together to actually show off visions for the different sites that Pittsburgh had in their area. And another tool we've used a lot of is this Matterport, where if you have an existing facility, you might have seen this in residential applications before. It works great for also commercial locations, and go through with the camera pretty much every 10 feet. It's a specialized camera, and it makes the whole thing into a 3D model that you can then walk through online. And now we're getting up to the last couple topics. This is workforce attraction has been frankly the number one focus for the last quite a few years now. It's still bigger than ever, and the issue right now is that it's going to get harder and harder from here on out. As of this last year, we had the most number of high school graduates we're going to have in at least the next 20 years in the United States, at least. And that means there's going to be fewer and fewer jobs. And there's an awful lot of people that are in the workforce now that are going to be leaving. And so that puts a lot of pressure on the economic development organizations to attract new talent to the communities. And it's never been harder than ever with the lack of housing and working out childcare issues. And it's really merged community development and economic development in ways that wasn't necessary before, but now is critical in order to accomplish. And so I want to just share some great examples you can check out of entire organizations that have built entire sites around just providing tools and information to attract people and to help them get jobs inside their communities. This is West Central Works. This was done by, one of the main drivers was Momentum West. It was the 10-county region in northwest Wisconsin, and they found all different ways of finding workforce training and getting people back into the jobs or getting jobs there. You can just see there was a massive campaign behind it to attract people, as well as building the microsite to be able to catch all those leads. Lead generation is important to talent attraction as it is to any of the others. This was from Greater Springfield, the Clark County Jobs, where they actually have all these videos of people talking about their jobs and why they love doing them and why they love living in Springfield. They're really authentic. They're not overly produced. They're like authentically produced, and it feels really real. And it's cool to hear these people talk about the jobs that they're doing. We just showed a video from Broken Arrow. That certainly was a workforce attraction video. You probably caught on. You can definitely check this out. BNBA is an entire workforce attraction site. It's different than their actual economic development site, and has big campaigns around it, and the videos played a big role. You can go in there and see all the different types of careers that you can get there, and get people excited about all the wonderful things in that area. Make Your Mark. This is in Bismarck, Mandan, which is in North Dakota. And they, on their website, they put in all the things that were really important to relocating. Like, how do you start a business here? How do you find a school? Check out our housing options. And they put all of that stuff right into a site that was just singularly focused on bringing people into the community and getting them excited and getting them all the information they need to make it successful. And then like Montgomery County, Kansas, they actually put together a program, and they put a lot of money behind their workforce attraction. To say you're going to do workforce attraction and not put money behind it is a huge, you're not going to have any success. I could tell you right now. You're going to have to, if that's what your strategy is and your goal is, you're going to have to put resources behind it. And this is the type of groups you're in competition with. They're paying off student loans for people to move in. They're putting down payments on houses so that people can get in there. They're giving incentives for relocating. And what's that one in the bottom left? Free money. So if that doesn't interest somebody that might be looking for a job, this is what the new types of workforce attraction programs are looking at. But I'll just roll in I guess I'm right at the time, so I'll go quick on this one. But this is now the biggest issue in economic development: business retention and expansion. Now, arguably, it's always been a part of everybody's economic development programs. Everybody wants to do it. They do some of it. There's some people very successful at it. but now it's become more important than ever. We just did a large survey of economic developers in 2020, 2025 about what are their biggest concerns going into 2026. 86% of them said business retention was their main focus. It used to be kind of a side thing that they would do if they had time. It was mostly about business attraction. Then the last, I'd say, 5-6 years, it really workforce development got higher and higher up. But business retention is going to be most important. And it's because of what I was just talking about. There's not going to be enough people for all the jobs. And so we need to be able to make sure that without the talent, how your business is going to grow. And so in order to have them stay there and not have to relocate somewhere else where there's other people, then you're going to have to really focus in on business retention. And that means getting a lot more people involved than before, because you have to have local partnerships to have successful business retention. If you're a 1 or 2 person economic development team at best, you might be able to talk to 100 businesses in your community over the course of a year directly, but oftentimes there can be thousands of businesses in your community. So how do you get to those people? How do you make this information available? And you work with other groups to solve the problems that the businesses that are already there need. And that can be education, a lot of workforce development groups, city councils, all of the other people in the similar industries, the cultural organizations that are in your community, some of the civil services, all of those people should be at the table because they're all going to be part of the solution for your own community. And it gets, like I said, the community development things like the housing and the childcare and stuff is, and the downtown revitalization projects and the quality of life elements are now as important to this as the economic development functions are too. I'll give you a couple examples to check out. One of them is Washington County in Minnesota. They actually built a whole section of their site that's just targeting the community that's already here and trying to network them to share talent across. Say they made a one-on-one support system for CEOs to get information, or people of different types of talents to be able to connect. They were doing webinars and the like. They also, along with Springfield, this is in Ohio, put in Size Up. Size Up is a tool that takes really a big-time consultant level data that used to be pretty reserved and makes it available to anyone that's goes to the community. So if you're a small business, you could go in there and say, hey, I'm going to start a dental office. Where are the other dental offices? What should I expect? What do people get paid in the area? What's the traffic like in these sections? What are these neighborhoods like? And it puts it all there and makes it available so that it supports all of the small businesses that you might not have time to get to. And sometimes you're in an economic development group where it's hard to convince the community to do changes and to make change. We had an entire campaign in Leavenworth County where we started off by doing professional polling, both calls and emails, to get a sense of what people were. They were resistant to a lot of change and a lot of new development. They liked things how they were. And the truth is, if you don't grow your community and if you don't support the economic development organization, I think the stats were within 2 years, you start losing businesses. Within 4 years, you start losing schools and school population. And within 6 years, you start losing your health care. They'll start moving to other communities that are farther away. And people don't realize that by not guiding the canoe and helping it grow, that you're actually hurting yourself a lot, along with your whole community many years later. And so that's something that needed to be taught. We were able to use digital ads and making sure that this is an example one, 58 million in new investment, 400 plus jobs created that went into the community to the people that were living there, and have ultimately generated support. And we could poll later to find out if that sentiment had shifted, and it had. And one of the tools we used in this, speaking of AI, was Google's Performance Max, which has a really nice tool for generating and validating their ads, and to make sure that the ones that are having the most impact continue to. So, and then the last thing I'd say is get the people in your community, the high school kids, I'll say high school students, junior high students. They need to know what jobs are available in your community so they can get excited about those. you're going to need them if possible to stay and take those jobs if we can't get people to move in. And Clark County in Ohio did an awesome job of this. They have all those videos of all those people doing their different jobs and what they love about them, and they're all jobs that are available right there in Clark County. We did some of these with leading employers in virtual reality. This happened to be in Shelby County, Kentucky, where we went to 5 leading employers, made entire videos of what it's like to work there, and then brought it to job fairs and actually directly to the high schools so they could try on the headsets and see what it's like to be in that manufacturing plant that they drive by every day on the school bus, but have no idea what's going on inside, and get excited about those jobs that could be theirs if they would like. Here's a couple screenshots of that. So,
Fun.
okay, we're only 5 minutes over. I think we beat last year by
A little bit. Let's just say we beat it by a little
a
bit.
little
No,
bit.
it's good. So much information, lots of great stuff. And I was just, Aaron, as you were just going through this, I was thinking of some of the questions that have come up. One about affordability. Christy asked a question about, as a smaller community, many of these programs are unaffordable. But I guess what's really interesting is that most of them actually are very affordable. Many of them have freemium versions that you can use to get in there. Many of them promise like capacity leverage that pay for themselves actually quite quickly. But there is actually a ton out there that, even I'm a private consultant and I'm still using many of these tools because they're very low cost and put these things at your fingertips and give you the capacity to do so much more. So affordability is not necessarily the barrier that you might think it is. And I would encourage you to check that out. And there was one other question that I wanted to jump to, and of course, we welcome anyone who wants to put any questions in here, which is how can I tie my marketing efforts with my BRE and business development teams? How do I create a feedback loop to avoid marketing and sales becoming siloed? And I love this question. I know, Aaron, this is something that, we've really thought about because it's actually so critical that those conversations don't happen in separate rooms. Your marketing team should be sitting in on your sales meetings. Your business development folks should be talking to your investment attraction people because so much content can be leveraged, repurposed, reused. Maybe something is being created as you develop marketing campaigns for business retention. That is fabulous stuff that can also be used maybe with slight tweaks for your investment attraction and your workforce side of things. So, I'm always happy to work with teams to help them figure out what that actually looks like on the ground, week to week, day by day, to ensure that those people don't get siloed.
Yeah, to the cost question, I want to check out. We have a white paper we put together. I think it came out in September with Convergent, and talked about different ways of raising money. It's both creative ways we've seen as well as more formal ways like raising capital and doing a capital campaign and getting support, or sharing funding across different groups, not just the economic development group, but using it for common goals, raising money from industry, etc. You can take a look at that. There were quite a few cool case studies in there. And I don't think, some of the things we're showing today, like take Notebook LM, for example. Let's say you do have enough time to put a good paper together about your community. Well, maybe a lot of the other assets can be generated, or like what Impact Local Local Intel was doing, where you can take one story and you can make lots of different types of content from it. Notebook LM can generate lots of content there. You can make multiple ways to get your message out without having to invest all of that time or to just make it all manually.
Absolutely. And as you talk about your white paper, I know we just had a question. If you're starting from scratch, what advice can you offer an economic development group to begin? Amazing question. I would start simple by thinking about what your policies are, how you're going to actually do this. You don't have to do all of the things immediately. Maybe start by taking a look at the white paper that Golden Shovel's put together. I'm always happy to sit down with a group, and you'd be surprised how much content you probably already have that you can start thinking about repurposing or reusing it in different ways. If you use Google, then you already have access to Notebook LM. It's built in there, and so is Gemini. So you can take some of that content and come up with some cool things that you put out, whether it's an infographic or explainer videos or adding some new life to your presentation deck. So there is actually, I would start small, start with the materials that you currently already have, and then go out and, every week maybe check out one new thing and see what's out there and how you can maybe keep doing these kinds of things a little bit better or taking into account stuff you've already got and repurposing them. I think otherwise it feels overwhelming. What do you think, Aaron?
Think you're absolutely right. Yeah, definitely take a look at the white papers. There's we've helped set up multiple organizations over the years, but there's so many creative ideas that are out there right now that people are doing. Not all of them cost a lot. Some of them are just really good ideas, and it's just about learning about them and trying them on your own. So great. Well, hey, I think we are at hour 10.
Yes, we definitely are. And we appreciate everybody coming to join us here. You will hear from us with oh, here we go, with a link to the video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We're happy to connect with you and help you figure out what makes the most sense for your communities. Aaron, this is so much fun. 11 years of doing this. I'm always happy to be working with you guys.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks, Lisa. It's been awesome. So thanks everybody for joining us today.
Bye bye.